Hello, I'm Kara O'Donnell, your host for County Board Wrap Up, our monthly virtual conversation with our county board members on the actions they take that affect all of us as a community. Joining us today is Board Chair Libby Garvey, as well as Board Member Katie Crystal. Thank you both for being here today. And now, after taking a break in August, the board came back to a September agenda filled with big issues, some of them a bit controversial. They also heard a sobering report from the county manager on the impact that the coronavirus pandemic is having on county revenues. But we are going to begin today by taking a look at the board's adoption of a ban on firearms in county government buildings, parks, and at special events. Libby, we'll start with you. How did this whole idea of this ordinance come about, and what exactly does it prohibit?
So it came about really because of an action in the General Assembly. I think a lot of us have been wanting for some time an ability to do more to control guns certainly in our buildings and our spaces. And we finally got the right to do that through the General Assembly. And a number of our neighboring jurisdictions have adopted this ordinance as well. And pretty much all of us, I believe, are really basing it very much almost exactly on what was passed by the General Assembly. And that is what we did. We did a little bit of tweaking to it because it's applying to basically all our facilities. So that includes parks outside. It includes our buildings. And we heard from a lot of particularly concealed carry weapon holders. And I've learned a lot. I understand for some people that wearing a gun is like wearing clothes. They put it on in the morning and they take it off at night. And so they're always just walking around with their guns. They don't even think about it. And they had a concern that they might end up in a park with a gun and get themselves, arrested and charged and their careers ruined, because this is a Class 1 misdemeanor if you violate it. So we worked to make one really clear that it wasn't enforced except where there was signage. It had to be clear. We're not trying to do a gotcha at all for people. So we worked on that. And then we also, we heard from folks concerned about their ability to provide security, particularly for religious events, that every now and then there might be something in the park where you would have a synagogue or a congregation doing something in one of our parks to celebrate the holidays or whatever. And because they're in the parks, that nobody could carry a weapon. And because they weren't carrying a weapon, they were feeling insecure. And certainly you watch what's going around in the country, that's understandable. So we carved out a bit of an exception for them. There's a special permit, which has not been yet put together. We're going to figure that one out. But a special permit so that concealed carry folks who meet the requirements of the permit and are registered as the event could be there providing security for that event. And those are the two main changes we made. And, we had, I thought, a really good dialogue and conversation with folks since we advertised it in July and then we adopted it this month. And I thought the conversations were good. What did you think, Katie?
Yeah, certainly we heard from a lot of impassioned gun carriers concerned about this. I think at the end of the day, the conversation boiled down to whether you as an Arlingtonian believe that you're safer in a park where there are fewer guns or where there are more guns. I think it's clear that those of us on the county board believe, and substantiated by a fair bit of research, that we're safer when there are fewer firearms. But I think as Libby mentioned, we understand, and I think had our horizons expanded by folks who feel passionately that that's not the case. So it was quite a conversation. I think, the only sort of nuance about those special event permits, likely what we'll do as our staff develops this, that permit will likely require for a security guard who's met our DCJS standards, which are our state standards for training. I think we have also learned that perhaps the process to get a concealed carry permit is not quite as onerous as we might hope for somebody carrying around an instrument that can actually cause death. And so the permit for security guards that we see at the state level requires significantly more training and experience. And so although, again, that permit process for a gun carrier at a special event on county property is not yet formalized by our manager and likely our police department, that's sort of what we're thinking right now.
Yeah. And also, I think we got to emphasize the signage issue. People were so worried about, it's got to be clearly marked. We had a lot of talk about what is the area adjacent, the word adjacent, and making it clear. So we really don't want to entrap anybody. We want to be clear. And the other big issue, Katie, I thought was, there is also a difference of opinion. Some people think that anybody with a gun ought to be able to provide public safety, and basically the board, I am not comfortable with anybody who's able to get a gun be deciding that they want to provide public safety. And we've been seeing issues with that, of course, around the country. And anyway, we can move on. The Second Amendment just continues. The logic continues to elude me. I believe there's a clause in there about carrying a weapon within a well-armed militia, well-trained militia. And where is the well-trained militia part? We're trying to put that in with the training and these different requirements. It's just not safe to have anybody who wants to have a gun running around with it, as far as I'm concerned. But that's me, and I think a majority of the people in Arlington.
Well, Libby, you touched on this before, but how will this ordinance be enforced? You mentioned the signage. Will there be police officers stationed at these parks specifically looking for this kind of thing, or how is this going to work?
No, it's simply if police notice somebody violating it, they'd just be a warning. They'd be asked to leave the premises with the gun. That's all. And I don't think we're envisioning changing things at all. And at our special events, you always have a lot of our police there for security just anyway. So
I think you'll also see a lot of our facilities do have staff. They probably aren't Arlington County Police Department, but they may be Parks and Recreation, library staff, and so forth. And so they'll have the ability to give that warning themselves, and if not, to call the county police department.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not out to entrap anybody. And most people, we ask them to leave with their weapon, they will.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, then we've got an issue.